The first rays of sunlight crept through the tall windows of Kensington Palace as Prince William opened his eyes on what would become one of the most important days of his life. The date was May 6, 2023, and today his father, King Charles, would be crowned in a ceremony that millions around the world would watch. William had barely slept the night before, thinking about everything that would happen today. He sat up in bed and looked at the clock, showing it was just past 6 in the morning. William walked to his window and gazed out at the London streets. Below, even at this early hour, he could see people beginning to gather along the roads that the royal procession would travel later. Some had camped out all night just to get a good spot to see the royal family pass by. The sight made William feel both honored and nervous at the same time. These people had come from all over the world to witness his father become king, and to see him take his place as the heir to the throne. His personal valet knocked gently on the door and entered, carrying a breakfast tray. William had known this man for many years and trusted him completely. The valet had worked for the royal family since William was a teenager and understood exactly what was needed on such an important day. He set the tray down on a small table near the window and began preparing William's ceremonial outfit for the coronation. The uniform that had been chosen for William was truly magnificent. It was a deep navy blue military dress uniform with intricate gold braiding running across the chest and down the arms. The jacket had been specially tailored to fit William perfectly, and every detail had been carefully planned months in advance. Rows of ceremonial medals hung from ribbons on the left side of the chest, each one representing different aspects of William's military service and royal duties. The golden threads in the uniform caught the morning light as the valet carefully arranged everything on a special stand. William watched as each piece was laid out with military precision. There were white gloves that had been perfectly cleaned and pressed, golden shoulder cords that would drape elegantly across his shoulders, ceremonial sword that had been polished until it gleamed like a mirror. Even his shoes had been shined to such perfection that William could see his reflection in them. As William ate his breakfast, he thought about all the times he had worn military uniforms before. He had served in the Royal Air Force and had worn uniforms during many official ceremonies, but this uniform was different. This was not just about his military service or his royal duties. This uniform would mark his official transition from being simply a senior royal to being the direct heir to his father, the king. His wife, Catherine, left earlier that morning with their children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. They would travel separately to Westminster Abbey, and William would join them there later. The palace felt unusually quiet without the sound of his children running through the halls. William was used to the noise and energy they brought to their home, and their absence made the morning feel even more serious and formal. William showered and began the careful process of getting dressed. His valet helped him with each piece of the uniform, making sure everything was positioned exactly right. The jacket fit him perfectly across his broad shoulders, and the gold braiding seemed to make him look taller and more commanding. As each medal was pinned in place, William thought about what it represented and why he was wearing it today. The most important part of his outfit was a special sash that would identify him as the Prince of Wales and heir to the throne. The sash was made of the finest silk in a deep blue color that matched his uniform perfectly. Golden embroidery covered the entire length of the sash with symbols that had been used by the royal family for hundreds of years. When the valet placed it across William's chest and shoulder, he felt the weight of history and tradition settling on him. Looking in the mirror, William hardly recognized himself. The young man who had once been so reluctant to take on royal duties had been replaced by someone who looked every bit the future king. His posture was straight and confident. His expression was serious but not stern. The uniform seemed to bring out a natural authority that had been developing in William for years, but was now impossible to ignore. The valet stepped back and nodded with satisfaction. Everything was perfect, from the angle of William's hat to the way his medals caught the light. William took a deep breath and looked at himself one more time. In just a few hours, he would walk into Westminster Abbey wearing this uniform, and the whole world would see him as the future King of England. For the first time, William thought about his mother, Princess Diana, and wondered what she would think if she could see him now. He remembered how she had always told him that being royal was about serving people and making a difference in their lives. Today, he would make a promise to continue that service, not just as a prince, but as someone who would one day be king. The sounds from outside were getting louder as more people gathered in the streets. William could hear the distant noise of crowds, and knew that soon the roads would be completely filled with people hoping to catch a glimpse of the royal family. Television crews from around the world had been setting up since before dawn, and every major news network would be broadcasting the coronation live. As William prepared to leave his room, he felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement that he had never experienced before. This was not just another royal event or ceremony. This was the day that would define the rest of his life and set the stage for his eventual role as king. The uniform he wore was not just clothing, the symbol of the responsibility he was accepting and the promise he was making to serve his country and the Commonwealth. The valet opened the door and William stepped out into the hallway of Kensington Palace, ready to begin the journey that would take him to Westminster Abbey and into his future as the heir to the British throne. The Golden State coach waited outside Kensington Palace as Prince William stepped through the main entrance doors. The morning air was cool and crisp, but William could feel the warmth of the sun on his face as he walked toward the magnificent carriage. The coach was one of the most beautiful vehicles in the royal collection, covered in gold leaf and decorated with paintings that told the story of the British monarchy. 8 gray horses stood perfectly still in their ceremonial harnesses waiting. To pull the coach through the streets of London, William paused for a moment before climbing into the coach and looked around at the scene before him. Palace guards stood at attention in their bright red uniforms and tall black hats. Staff members who had worked tirelessly to prepare for this day watched from windows and doorways. Some had tears in their eyes, knowing they were witnessing history being made. The atmosphere was electric with excitement and anticipation that seemed to fill the air around the palace. As William settled into the plush velvet seat, inside the coach, he could hear the sounds of the crowd growing louder in the distance. Coach began to move slowly through the palace gates and onto the streets of London. Immediately, William was amazed by what he saw outside the windows. Thousands of people lined both sides of the street, waving flags and cheering as the royal procession passed by. Men, women, and children of all ages had come to witness this historic moment. The crowd was unlike anything William had ever seen before. People had traveled from every corner of the United Kingdom and from countries around the world just to be here today. Some wore traditional British clothing, while others had dressed in the colors of their home countries. Children sat on their parents' shoulders to get a better view of the royal coach. Elderly people in wheelchairs had been brought to the front of the crowd so they could see the procession clearly. What struck William most was the genuine joy and excitement on people's faces. These were not just curious onlookers, but people who truly cared about the monarchy and what it represented. Many held handmade signs with messages of support for the royal family. Others had painted their faces with the colors of the British flag. The enthusiasm was infectious, and William found himself smiling and waving back at the crowd with more energy than he had expected. The coach moved slowly through the streets of central London, passing some of the most famous landmarks in the world. They traveled down the Mall, the long straight road that leads to Buckingham Palace. The trees that lined both sides of the road were in full bloom, creating a natural canopy of green leaves above the heads of the spectators. Union Jack flags hung from every lamppost and building, creating a sea of red, white, and blue that stretched as far as the eye could see. As they approached Trafalgar Square, the crowds grew even larger and louder. The famous square was completely packed with people who had arrived hours earlier to secure good viewing spots. The 4 lions that guard Nelson's column were decorated with flower garlands, and the fountains had been turned off so that people could stand closer to the center of the square. Television cameras on tall platforms captured every moment of the procession for broadcast. Around the world, William could see reporters and camera crews positioned at strategic points along the route. Some were broadcasting live to television networks, while others were taking photographs that would appear in newspapers and magazines around the world. The flash of camera bulbs was constant, creating a twinkling effect that made the entire scene feel magical and dreamlike. The coach turned onto Whitehall, the street that houses many of the most important government buildings in Britain. Crowd was more formal, with many people wearing suits and elegant dresses. Government officials and diplomats watched from balconies and windows of the buildings that lined the street. William recognized some faces from official state functions and international meetings. He had attended with his father over the years. As they passed Downing Street, where the Prime Minister lives, William could see security personnel on every rooftop and corner. The level of protection for the coronation was unlike anything that had been seen in London for decades. Police officers on horseback rode alongside the coach, while others walked among the crowd watching for any signs of trouble. Despite the heavy security presence, the atmosphere remained festive and celebratory. The coach approached Parliament Square, and William could see Westminster Abbey in the distance. The ancient building looked magnificent in the morning sunlight, with its twin towers reaching toward the sky. Scaffolding and temporary structures had been erected around the abbey to accommodate the thousands of guests who would attend the coronation ceremony. Television towers and satellite dishes created a forest of technology that would beam the ceremony to every corner of the globe. William felt his heart beating faster as they drew closer to their destination. The reality of what was about to happen began to sink in more deeply. In just a few minutes, he would step out of this coach and walk into Westminster Abbey, where kings and queens had been crowned for nearly 1,000 years. He would take his place in a ceremony that connected him to every monarch who had come before him and established his role in the future of the British throne. The crowd outside Westminster Abbey was the largest and most enthusiastic of the entire journey. People had been waiting here since before dawn, and their excitement had built to a fever pitch. As the golden coach came to a stop outside the Abbey doors, the cheering became so loud that William could feel the vibrations through the floor of the carriage. Camera flashes created a constant strobe effect, and the noise was overwhelming. William took a deep breath and prepared to step out of the coach. He could see his wife Catherine and their children already waiting inside the Abbey. Through the open doors, palace officials and ceremonial guards stood ready to escort him into the building where his father was preparing for the most important moment of his reign. The coach door opened, and William placed his foot on the step, ready to emerge into the full view of the world and take his place in history. Prince William stepped out of the golden coach and felt the full force of the crowd's excitement wash over him like a wave. The cheering was so loud that it seemed to echo off the ancient stones of Westminster Abbey and bounce back from every direction. Camera flashes created a constant bright light that made the morning feel like midday. William straightened his shoulders, took a deep breath, and began walking toward the massive wooden doors of the Abbey that had been thrown open to welcome him. The moment William's feet touched the stone steps leading into Westminster Abbey, he felt as though he was walking into history itself. These same steps had been climbed by kings and queens for nearly 1,000 years. His own grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, had walked up these steps for her coronation in 1953. His father had been here many times before, but never as the person about to be crowned king. The weight of all that history seemed to settle on William's shoulders as he moved forward. Inside the Abbey, the atmosphere was completely different from the excited chaos outside. The ancient buildings seemed to absorb sound, creating a sense of reverence and solemnity that took William's breath away. Hundreds of guests were already seated in wooden pews that stretched from the front of the church all the way to the back. The morning light streamed through stained glass windows that were hundreds of years old, casting colorful patterns on the stone floor and walls. William walked slowly down the center aisle of the Abbey, his footsteps echoing softly on the stone. Flora, every eye in the building turned to watch him as he made his way toward the front where his father, King Charles, was waiting. The guests included world leaders, presidents, prime ministers, and members of royal families from around the globe. William recognized many faces from state dinners and official visits, but today, everyone looked more formal and serious than he had ever seen them before. The Archbishop of Canterbury stood at the altar wearing ceremonial robes that were magnificent in their beauty and complexity. The ancient religious vestments were covered in gold embroidery and precious stones that caught the light from the candles and chandeliers that illuminated the Abbey. Behind the Archbishop was the coronation chair, a wooden throne that had been used for the crowning of English monarchs since the year 1308. The chair looked both fragile and powerful at the same time, carrying the weight of centuries of royal tradition. William found his designated place near the front of the abbey, where he would have a perfect view of his father's coronation. As he stood there, he could feel the eyes of everyone in the building on him. Television cameras positioned throughout the abbey were broadcasting his every movement to millions of people around the world. William tried to remain calm and composed, but he could feel his heart beating faster as the magnitude of the moment began to sink in even more deeply. The ceremony began with music that seemed to fill every corner of the ancient building. A choir of boys and men sang hymns that had been performed at royal coronations for generations. Their voices rose toward the vaulted ceiling of the abbey, creating a sound that was both beautiful and powerful.
Ow!
William closed his eyes for a moment and let the music wash over him, feeling connected to all the kings and princes who had stood in this same place before him. King Charles entered the abbey wearing the traditional coronation robes that transformed him from the man William knew as his father into someone who looked every inch a king. The robes were made of gold cloth and purple velvet with ermine trim that spoke of royal power and authority. A long train followed behind the king, carried by young pages who had practiced their roles for months to ensure everything went perfectly. William watched his father with a mixture of pride and amazement, seeing him step fully into the role he had been preparing for his entire life. The archbishop began speaking the ancient words of the coronation ceremony that had been used for hundreds of years. His voice carried clearly throughout the abbey, reaching every person in the building and millions more watching on television around the world. William listened to every word, knowing that someday these same words would be spoken for him when he became king. The thought both thrilled and intimidated him, as he considered the enormous responsibility that would one day be his. As the ceremony continued, William became aware that many of the guests were looking at him almost as much as they were watching his father. He realized that this coronation was not just about King Charles becoming the monarch, but also about William stepping into his role as the heir to the throne. Every camera in the abbey seemed to find him capturing his reactions and his presence. As he witnessed this historic moment, the moment came for King Charles to be presented with the symbols of monarchy that represented his power and authority as king. The archbishop lifted the golden orb that represented the Christian world over, which the monarch ruled. Then came the scepter that symbolized the king's temporal power and authority. Finally, the most important moment arrived when the archbishop picked up St. Edward's crown, the ancient golden crown that would officially make Charles the King of England. William watched with intense concentration as the archbishop slowly lowered the crown onto his father's head. The moment the crown touched King Charles's head, a great shout went up from everyone in the abbey. "God save the king," they cried in unison, and William felt a chill run down his spine. His father was now officially the king, and William was now officially the heir to the throne in a way that felt more real and immediate than ever before. The newly crowned King Charles looked magnificent, sitting on the coronation throne, wearing the crown and holding the symbols of royal power. But William noticed something else that surprised him. Many of the guests in the abbey were looking at him with expressions of admiration and respect that he had never seen before. It was as though his presence at this ceremony and his magnificent uniform had transformed how people saw him from a senior royal family member into someone who truly looked like a future king. Camera operators throughout the abbey found themselves focusing their lenses on William almost as much as on the newly crowned king. There was something about the way William carried himself and the natural authority he projected that seemed to command attention. His ceremonial uniform looked perfect on him. His bearing was confident, regal in a way that surprised even those who had known him for years. As the coronation ceremony reached its conclusion, William felt a profound sense of change, both in his father and in himself. King Charles had been officially crowned, and William had officially stepped into his role as heir to the throne. The ceremony that had begun hours earlier was coming to an end, but William knew that his life as the future King of England was just beginning. While Prince William stood inside Westminster Abbey watching his father's coronation ceremony, millions of people around the world were watching him on their television screens, computers, and mobile phones. started as casual viewing of the royal coronation quickly turned into something much more powerful as viewers began to notice something extraordinary about Prince William's appearance and presence during the historic ceremony. Sarah Mitchell, a young teacher from Manchester, was watching the coronation on her laptop while getting ready for work. She had turned on the coverage mainly as background noise, but found herself stopping what she was doing to stare at the screen when the cameras focused on Prince William. Something about the way he looked in his ceremonial uniform made her reach for her phone and open Twitter. She quickly typed a message that would be shared thousands of times within the next hour. "Prince William looks absolutely incredible today," she wrote. "The way he carries himself is so powerful and regal. This is what a future king should look like." Within minutes of Sarah posting her tweet, hundreds of other people were writing similar messages on social media platforms around the world. The hashtag Prince William began appearing on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. As people shared screenshots and video clips of William from the coronation coverage, comments poured in from people who had never shown much interest in the royal family before but found themselves captivated by William's commanding presence at the ceremony in New York City. Maria Rodriguez was watching the coronation coverage on her phone during her lunch break at work. She had grown up in America and had never paid much attention to the British royal family, but something about Prince William caught her eye immediately. She opened Instagram and posted a photo she had taken of her television screen showing William in his magnificent uniform. The caption she wrote would receive over 50,000 likes before the day was over. "I never really cared about royalty before, but Prince William at this coronation is making me understand what royal presence really means. He looks like he was born to be king." The response on social media was unlike anything the royal family had experienced before. Twitter users were sharing side-by-side photos comparing William's appearance at previous royal events with how he looked at the coronation. The difference was striking, and people were quick to point out how much more confident and authoritative he appeared. Fashion bloggers began analyzing every detail of his uniform, from the perfect fit of his jacket to the way his medals caught the light during the ceremony. Dr. James Thompson, a professor of media studies at Oxford University, was monitoring social media during the coronation as part of his research into public reactions to royal events. He had expected the usual mix of supportive and critical comments that typically followed royal occasions, but what he was seeing was completely different. The response to Prince William was overwhelmingly positive and was coming from demographics that usually showed little interest in the monarchy. Young people who had previously dismissed the royal family as outdated were posting enthusiastic messages about William's appearance and demeanor. On Instagram, the fashion account Royal Style, which had over 2 million followers, posted a detailed breakdown of William's coronation outfit. The post received more comments and likes than any previous royal fashion analysis they had ever published. Followers were praising not just the uniform itself, but the way William wore it with such natural grace and authority. Many comments mentioned how the ceremonial dress seemed to transform William from a familiar public figure into someone who truly looked like future royalty. Television news networks around the world began to notice the social media phenomenon developing around Prince William. CNN entertainment correspondent Lisa Chang was providing live coverage of the coronation when her producer told her through her earpiece that Prince William was trending on Twitter worldwide. She immediately began incorporating the social media response into her live broadcast. "What we are seeing here is unprecedented," she told viewers. "The public response to Prince William's appearance at today's coronation is breaking social media records. People are not just watching history being made, they are falling in love with the future of the British monarchy." The BBC social media team was overwhelmed by the volume of posts and comments about Prince William. Their official coronation coverage was being shared millions of times, but the clips that were going viral were specifically those featuring William. The most popular videos showed a moment when William stood perfectly still and composed while cameras captured him from multiple angles during a particularly solemn part of the ceremony. Viewers were commenting on his poise, his confidence, and the way he seemed to command respect without saying a word. Royal photographer Arthur Mills, who had been taking pictures of the royal family for over 20 years, was positioned inside Westminster Abbey with perfect access to photograph the ceremony. He had expected to focus primarily on King Charles during the coronation, but found his camera repeatedly drawn to Prince William. There was something about William's presence that seemed to demand photographic attention. The images Mills was capturing were unlike any royal photographs he had taken before showing. William as a figure of genuine authority and power, fashion. Magazines around the world began preparing special features about Prince William's coronation looked even before the ceremony had ended. Vogue editor Catherine Williams was watching the coverage from her office in London and immediately called an emergency meeting with her staff. "We need to completely change our coronation coverage," she announced. "Prince William is the story here. It's the way he looks, the way he carries himself. This is going to be the defining royal moment of our generation." On TikTok, young creators were making videos analyzing William's coronation appearance and comparing it to other royal moments throughout history. One video that would eventually receive over 5 million views showed a compilation of William at various royal events over the years, culminating with footage from the coronation. The transformation was remarkable, and viewers were amazed by how much William had grown into his role as future king. The social media explosion around Prince William reached beyond just comments about his appearance. People were sharing stories about how watching him at the coronation had changed their perception of the monarchy itself. Many said they had never understood the appeal of royal tradition before, but seeing William's dignified presence had helped them appreciate the importance of the institution. Comments poured in from people around the world saying they felt proud and excited about the future of the British royal family after seeing William's performance at the coronation. By the time the coronation ceremony ended, Prince William had become the most talked-about person on social media worldwide. The hashtags related to his appearance were trending in over 30 countries, and the positive response showed no signs of slowing down. What had started as routine coverage of a royal ceremony had turned into a global celebration of Prince William as the future king, and the response was still growing stronger with each passing hour. The days following King Charles' coronation brought a wave of media coverage that surprised everyone, including the royal family themselves. What had started as traditional reporting about the historic ceremony quickly transformed into something much more significant as news outlets around the world began focusing on the extraordinary public response to Prince William's appearance and presence during the coronation. The impact was unlike anything the monarchy had experienced in decades. Major newspapers that had planned to dedicate their front pages to King Charles found themselves featuring Prince William instead. The Times of London ran a headline that "Read the Future King Captures Hearts Worldwide," with photos of William from the coronation ceremony taking up most of the front page. The Guardian published an analysis piece titled "How Prince William Redefined Royal Authority in a Single Day." Even international publications that rarely covered British royal news were running features about William's commanding presence at his father's coronation. Television news programs extended their royal coverage far beyond what they had originally planned as producers realized that the story about Prince William was generating massive viewer interest. Good Morning America brought in royal experts to discuss what they called the William phenomenon. The Today Show dedicated an entire segment to analyzing how William's appearance had changed public perception of the monarchy. CNN ran a special report titled "The Making of a Modern King," focusing entirely on William's transformation during the coronation ceremony. Fashion magazines around the world scrambled to feature Prince William on their covers, something that had never happened before on such a large scale. Gentleman's Quarterly published a special edition with William on the cover, calling him the royal style icon the world has been waiting for. Harper's Bazaar ran a detailed analysis of his coronation uniform and how it represented a perfect blend of tradition and modern royal style. Even Vogue, which typically focused on women's fashion, featured William's coronation look in a major editorial spread. The response from younger generations was particularly striking and caught the attention of sociologists and media experts who had long studied public attitudes toward the monarchy. University students who had previously shown little interest in royal affairs were joining online discussions about Prince William and what his future reign might look like. Social media platforms continued to see massive engagement with content related to William's coronation appearance, with new posts and videos being created daily. Dr. Emma Richardson, a professor of sociology at Cambridge University who specialized in public attitudes toward the monarchy, was amazed by what she was observing. In 30 years of studying how people relate to the royal family, she had never seen such a dramatic shift in public opinion happen so quickly. Her research team began conducting surveys to measure the change in public perception, and the results were remarkable. Approval ratings for Prince William had increased by 25% in just 1 week following the coronation. International media coverage of Prince William reached levels typically reserved for major world events. Japanese television networks ran special programs about the British prince who had captured global attention. French newspapers published lengthy features analyzing how William's presence might influence the future relationship between Britain and Europe. Australian media outlets ran polls asking citizens about their views on Prince William as the future king, and the results showed overwhelming support and admiration. The fashion industry took notice of the Prince William phenomenon in ways that surprised even seasoned royal watchers. High-end menswear designers began creating collections inspired by William's coronation uniform. Savile Row tailors reported increased demand for military-style formal wear as men around the world wanted to emulate William's powerful look. The specific shade of navy blue from his uniform became known as Royal Navy. William appeared in fashion collections throughout the following months. Royal biographers and historians found themselves rewriting their assessments of Prince William. In light of the coronation response, books about the future of the monarchy that had already been published were being updated with new chapters about William's emergence as a truly regal figure. Publishers commissioned new biographies focusing specifically on William's journey from reluctant royal to commanding future king. The tourism industry in Britain experienced an unexpected boost as people from around the world wanted to visit the places associated with Prince William. Tours of Kensington Palace, where William lived with his family, saw increased bookings. Westminster Abbey reported record numbers of visitors wanting to see where the coronation had taken place and where they had witnessed William's transformation. The gift shops at royal residences could not keep up with demand for items featuring William's coronation photograph. Political commentators began discussing how Prince William's increased popularity might affect the future of the monarchy and its role in British society. Some suggested that his commanding presence at the coronation had strengthened public support for the institution at a time when many had questioned its relevance. Others noted that William's ability to connect with younger generations might help ensure the monarchy's survival in a rapidly changing world. The response from Commonwealth countries was particularly significant for the future of the monarchy. Prime ministers and government officials from Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and other Commonwealth nations issued statements praising Prince William's performance at the coronation. Many expressed confidence in the future of their relationships with Britain under William's eventual leadership. Opinion polls in Commonwealth countries showed increased support for maintaining ties with the British monarchy. Entertainment industry figures who had never shown interest in the royal family began expressing admiration for Prince William. Hollywood actors posted social media messages praising his coronation appearance. Television talk show hosts dedicated segments of their programs to discussing the prince, who had surprised everyone with his regal presence. Late-night comedy shows that typically made jokes about the royal family found themselves treating Prince William with genuine respect and admiration. The impact extended beyond just media coverage and public opinion polls. Charitable organizations that Prince William supported reported dramatic increases in donations and volunteer applications. The mental health initiatives he championed saw renewed interest from people who wanted to support causes associated with the future king. Environmental groups he worked with experienced similar boosts in public engagement and support. Palace officials were overwhelmed by the positive response and had to expand their communications team to handle the volume of media requests for interviews and information about Prince William. The traditional royal approach of limited public access was being reconsidered as officials realized they had a unique opportunity to build on the unprecedented public enthusiasm for the future king. As the weeks passed, it became clear that Prince William's coronation appearance had created a lasting change in how the public viewed both him personally and the monarchy as an institution. What had started as a single day of ceremonial duties had transformed into a defining moment that would influence the future of the British royal family for generations to come. 6 months after King Charles' coronation, the impact of Prince William's powerful appearance at the ceremony continued to shape how people around the world viewed the British monarchy. It had begun as a single moment of royal pageantry had evolved into something much more significant, creating lasting changes that would influence the future of the royal family for decades to come. The transformation in public perception was so complete that even William himself had to adjust to his new role as a truly global figure. Museums and art galleries around the world began acquiring photographs and memorabilia from Prince William's coronation appearance. The National Portrait Gallery in London commissioned a special painting of William in his ceremonial uniform to hang alongside portraits of previous heirs to the throne. The artist chosen for the commission, Lady Margaret Thornton, spent weeks studying photographs from the coronation to capture not just William's appearance, but the sense of authority and confidence that had impressed so many people that Day. Educational institutions incorporated Prince William's coronation moment into their curricula as an example of how public perception could change dramatically in a single event. Business schools used the phenomenon as a case study in personal branding and public image management. Media studies programs analyzed the social media response to understand how modern communications could amplify the impact of traditional ceremonial events. History departments discussed how William's appearance represented a new chapter in the evolution of the British monarchy. The fashion world continued to feel the influence of Prince William's coronation long after the ceremony ended.
The specific
Style of military dress uniform he had worn became the inspiration for formal wear collections from luxury fashion houses around the world. Designers who had never worked with royal themes began incorporating elements of British ceremonial dress into their creations. The deep navy blue color of William's uniform appeared in everything from business suits to evening wear, as men sought to capture some of the authority and elegance he had. Displayed publishers around the world rushed to produce books analyzing the Prince William phenomenon and its implications for the future of monarchy. Coffee table books featuring photographs from the coronation became bestsellers, with William's images taking prominence over traditional coverage of the ceremony itself. Academic publishers commissioned scholarly works examining how William's transformation during the coronation reflected broader changes in how modern societies related to traditional institutions. The tourism industry in Britain experienced sustained growth directly related to Prince William's increased global profile. Travel agencies created special Prince William tours that visited locations significant to his life and royal duties. Hotels near Kensington Palace, where William lived with his family, reported booking increases from international visitors hoping to catch a glimpse of the future king. Royal warrant holders, businesses that supplied goods to the royal family, saw increased interest from customers around the world who wanted to purchase items associated with Prince William. Television documentaries about Prince William began production at major networks around the world as producers realized there was enormous public appetite for content about the prince who had captured global attention. The BBC commissioned a 3-part series titled William: The Making of a Modern King that would premiere 2 years later. National Geographic announced plans for a documentary focusing on how William's coronation appearance had changed public attitudes toward hereditary monarchy in the 21st century. Political leaders around the world took notice of Prince William's increased stature and began seeking opportunities to meet with him during official visits to Britain. Presidents and prime ministers who had previously focused their attention on King Charles now specifically requested meetings with Prince William as well. Diplomatic experts noted that William's enhanced global profile could strengthen Britain's soft power, influence in international relations for years to come. The charitable sector experienced lasting benefits from Prince William's elevated status following the coronation. Organizations he supported reported sustained increases in donations and volunteer participation that continued months after the initial surge of interest. New charitable partnerships were proposed by international organizations eager to work with the prince whose global appeal had been so dramatically demonstrated. Foundation executives noted that William's involvement could bring attention to causes that had previously struggled to gain public awareness. Social media platforms developed new ways to measure and analyze the ongoing engagement with content related to Prince William. The hashtags created during the coronation continued to generate millions of posts and interactions months later. Marketing experts studied the phenomenon to understand how authentic moments of personal transformation could create lasting digital engagement. The sustained online interest in Prince William became a model for how public figures could build and maintain global influence. Fashion photographers and portrait artists competed for opportunities to capture Prince William in formal settings, hoping to create images that would match the impact of his coronation photographs. The most successful portraits managed to convey the same sense of natural authority and regal bearing that had made his coronation appearance so compelling. Art critics noted that the best images of William seemed to capture both his accessibility as a modern royal and his dignity as a future monarch. The entertainment industry continued to reference Prince William's coronation transformation in films, TUV, ISION, shows, and popular culture. Screenwriters began developing projects inspired by the idea of someone growing into a role of great responsibility and authority. The coronation moment became a cultural touchstone, representing how a single event could fundamentally change how the world viewed a person. Prince William himself gradually adapted to his enhanced global status, while maintaining the approachable demeanor that had always characterized his public appearances. Palace officials noted that he seemed more confident in formal settings and more comfortable with the ceremonial aspects of royal duty. His subsequent public appearances were met with even greater enthusiasm from crowds who were eager to see if he would display the same commanding presence they had witnessed at the coronation. International polling organizations conducted regular surveys to track public opinion about Prince William and consistently found that his approval ratings remained at historically high levels. The positive response crossed traditional demographic boundaries with strong support from young and old, urban and rural populations around the world. Political analysts suggested that William's broad appeal could help maintain public support for the monarchy well into the future. As the first anniversary of King Desire's coronation approached, preparations began for commemorative events that would celebrate not just the king's crowning, but also the moment when Prince William had emerged as a truly global royal figure. The Anniversary Planning Committee decided that William's transformation during the ceremony deserved special recognition. As a defining moment in modern royal history, the legacy of Prince William's coronation appearance had become clear. In a single day, he had evolved from being simply a senior member of the royal family to becoming a figure who commanded genuine respect and admiration from people around the world. The moment had not only left the internet speechless, but had fundamentally changed the trajectory of the British monarchy, ensuring its continued relevance and appeal for future generations.